Okay, so hi everyone. Thank you for joining today. Uh, Even though we're less than 10, but it's okay. So thank you for joining. Hope you're doing okay. Hope you're doing well um, today. So for today's session, we are going to explore uh, AI assisted mapping. Um, which is just basically how recently AI, artificial intelligence, is being used to support mapping activities on OSM. So I'll start by sharing my screen. I hope you can see it. Can someone confirm if they can? You can see my slides.
Yes, it is visible.
Yes, you can.
Okay, thanks. So before we go to the whole AI thing and the excitement about it, we'll start by looking at how we've been mapping. If you've just started mapping for the past few weeks, or if you've been mapping before, I guess for the past few years, what we've been doing is that we've been using visual image interpretation. If you're a JS person, probably you've heard about this in remote sensing. But basically, what that just means is we have been identifying features from satellite imagery using our eyes. So basically, we've been mapping what we see. Like basically, what's on the map is what a mapper saw with their. What is on the map is what a mapper saw with their eyes on the image, and then they traced it and added it to the map. So that's how we've been mapping. And although you might have not thought about it, you've been mapping, or we have been mapping using these elements of visual interpretation. One does not have to necessarily learn about them, but I think just how the mind works, it does it automatically for someone. So you do not necessarily think about shape, tone, and pattern, and shadows when mapping. Like your mind combines all these things and then makes you to make a decision. So, say for example, I just put the most common ones. So, shape and shape C, it's basically how an object looks like. So, for example, the image that I've used here, you can see at the top here, you can see this is a road. And then at the bottom, you can see it's a river. So when you're looking at imagery, how do you use shape to differentiate between the two? For a road, you'll notice that it's linear in a way, and that's usually common for urban features or man-made features. They're usually orthogonal or sort of planimetric. So like when you are, for example, when you're mapping buildings, they're usually rectangular or circular if it's a hut. Same for a river and a road. You'll notice a road is linear, but for a river, it sort of meanders and has a certain pattern. And then there's also tone, which is color. So also for the image that I've used here, you can see that for a building, you can see that the top of a building is like brownish. Then you can see there are some that are white or gray. But then you can also see that there's some trees. So for example, when you're mapping, you'll notice that you'll map these buildings, but you'll not map these green things as buildings because you can identify using color that these are trees and these are buildings, right? And then there's also pattern. So say how pattern helps a person to map is when you're mapping such an area, it's easy to notice that these are buildings and these are roads in between those buildings. So it helps you just to ensure there's that completeness. So these are also things that you can just have at the back of your mind when mapping to guide how you're adding features and how you're ensuring that a task is fully mapped. Then there are also things like shadows. So say, for example, when you're mapping areas in rural areas where there's a lot of tree cover and such things, you can usually look at the shape of the shadow to differentiate between say a tree and a building, because if it's a building, as you had said initially when you're talking about shape, you notice they're rectangular or they're circular and such things. But then for other features, you'll notice they are a bit irregular. So that's also another way that shadows can help. And also another way is when you're mapping crowded areas, you can also use shadows to see if there are buildings that you're missing, if a shadow is casted on another building and such things. Then obviously there are things like size. A good example, if you can use this second image here as well, one would easily map this entire thing as a building, but that's not the case. So you can see that there's one building here, there's another building here. Then these other ones are like L-shaped. It's like one L-shaped building, and then another building here, another building, another building. So you can also look at shape, even also in your not shape, size, to differentiate like the different features within an image. And then there are also things like texture. And lastly, association. So association is basically how are features connected to each other. So say, for example, if I'm mapping a river and a road, if a river is crossing a road, is there a visible bridge where that river crosses that road? Yeah, so but these are usually, when you're doing remote sensing, these are things that are usually covered, but they're actually things that are also important when you're mapping on OpenStreetMap. And mostly people do not think about it just because your mind already figures that out in a way. Because you can imagine when you're mapping a lot of buildings, doesn't make sense to start thinking about shape, tone, pattern. But your mind already does that on your behalf within seconds. So we can also we can say that when we are mapping the way we have been doing for the past few weeks, we are using human intelligence, just the way that I've been saying that your mind sort of does the thinking for you, like when differentiating between a building and a tree, like it takes care of all those elements, and then you end up mapping a feature. So, and as we have been doing, you can remember that the process was, yes, you open a task, there's satellite imagery in view. So the first thing that you do is you find a feature. Like, yes, you can see sort of different features on the imagery. So you find a feature, then when you find it, you trace it. So if it's a road, you choose line, you select on line, and you draw the road. If it's a building, you select on area, and you draw the building, etc, etc. So then usually square it or make it circular if it's a building, and do all these other necessary edits. So say, for example, if a road is crossing over another road, or if buildings are overlapping, so disconnecting those features, and just making sure that you're contributing quality data. And then usually end up by tagging, where we select that this feature is a building, or this feature is a path, or this feature is a highway. So that's usually the process when we are mapping manually, as we've been doing so far. Yeah, but if you have any questions, feel free to ask. You can just stop me and ask. Yeah, so then how does AI come in? And I think right now a lot of people are aware or hear a lot about AI, either if it's on media, social media, and such things. A lot of controversies as well surrounding it. But in the simplest of terms, what AI is it's just a simulation of human intelligence processes. So basically processes that humans do, so simulating them so that a machine can do them. And the most common is usually computer systems. So basically when you're thinking, even simply even when you're looking at a house, process of initially, you see, I think everyone would have to sweep a house or brush through a carpet to clean it. But then now when you're thinking, I don't know if you've seen this robotic vacuum cleaners. So basically is that you put that robotic vacuum cleaner, and it sort of goes through the carpet and cleans it for you. So it cleans it in a way similar to how you would have swept that or brushed through that carpet. So basically, that's in its simplest terms, that's how AI is. Yeah, it's basically just a simulation of what a human will do. I don't know which other example. Another example would be self-driving cars. Instead of a human, yes, a human being has to be there for now, I guess, but instead of having to control all these things, so if it's a traffic light and the car needs to stop, having to step on the brake gear and stop the car, with all these self-driving cars, they're able to see where the locations of traffic lights, and then have a look at the status of it, and then the car auto stops, and then if then the light changes, then it starts moving again. So yeah, it's basically, yeah, AI is really just a simulation of what a human being would do. Yeah. So and also, as I was saying, that there are a lot of controversies. AI is not meant to replace humans, or that, so far that's what I believe, but it's just intended to enhance human capabilities and contributions. So basically, it's meant to make our work easier in a way, and not necessarily replace us. So when a lot of people talk about AI, they also tend to talk about machine learning. But machine learning is it's actually a branch of AI, and it's not the other way around. So there's AI, then there's machine learning, and machine learning also, as you just say that for AI, human computer systems are learning or assimilating human behaviors. So for machine learning is now that process of how these computer systems are simulating those behaviors, and that is by looking from data that's available and identifying patterns, learning those patterns, and then making decisions based on that, on those patterns. So say, for example, as I was using the example for self-driving cars, for a car to stop at a traffic lights stop, it needs to, I guess, understand where's the location of where's the location of these traffic lights, and then it needs to understand what green means, what red means, and what orange means for that car in particular. And then it needs to know green means move, or red means stop, etc, etc. And then now makes a decision. So if I see red, then I actually need to stop, and to stop, I need to initialize process X, Y, Z. Yeah, so basically, yeah, that's what machine learning is as well. And now that I guess you're wondering, then why are we learning about all this, and we are here for mapping and all these other things? It's because it's possible for AI and machine learning to improve our processes of mapping, because we can all agree that mapping buildings, mapping roads directly from satellite imagery is a bit tedious and manual. So then how can that help us, and how can this make and how can we use AI and machine learning to make it easier for us? Number one is, you see, we have imagery, it has features. So in using machine learning, we can create an algorithm, and then instruct that algorithm and tell it, this is how a road looks like, this is its shape, this is its pattern. So draw these roads, and then it can learn to do that, and then draws the roads for us. Same to buildings, and same as well if you've done remote sensing before, and when you're doing image classification, when you're doing land use, land cover, and such things. So you used to do those things for unsupervised classification, supervised classification, and if you could remember, for supervised classification is when you could tell, you'll have to specify that this is vegetation and this is built up, and then when you run that functionality within the software, then it would classify for you using that. And then when you're doing unsupervised, you would not tell you will not have to specify the line users that you want, but then just instruct that functionality within the software to just classify on your behalf. That was actually AI. For my case, when we were in uni, it was not called AI, but if you actually think about it, it's AI and machine learning. So and that's how AI has been used to actually improve or help us to map on OpenStreetMap. So I think 2 years ago, in 2018, yeah, that's when it was announced that there's a service called Map with AI. It was created by Facebook to help mapping on ISM. And what the platform had is that, as I've shown in the images below, like that's basically what they developed. They took imagery, they used Maxa imagery, and then created machine learning algorithms and trained the models, and then came up now with AI generated data. So as you can see, with this first image, it's just an image, a satellite image, and then on this second image, this is what their AI models generated. So this is AI generated data. So it identified the roads, and even if you compare these roads here, and even on this imagery that has no features drawn on it yet, you can visually, if you are looking at it visually, you can see that these are roads in between all these buildings. And then now what happens and how we'll be using the service. It's just that instead of now me as a mapper starting to map a road from here, going all the way, tagging it, and moving all that like that, what this system does is just that now your work is just now to verify. So I just click on a feature that has already been drawn by the AI model, and then verify if it's actually as it is on the image, and then tag it. So if you can remember this first process of mapping manually, we had to first find a feature, trace that feature, make sure it's correctly drawn, tag it, and then upload. But then when you're using AI, what happens is that you're only verifying a feature and tagging a feature. So you can see how that has reduced the manual work that has to go in to just draw a feature to add on to OSM. And also that just adds up when you're defining machine learning and everything, and you're saying, and AI, and you're saying that its purpose is not to replace humans. So in our case, like its purpose is not to replace mappers, but it's to make our work easier and enhance how we're contributing. Because the faster we can add a feature on a map, the faster we can map more areas on OpenStreetMap, and also the more we can focus on other things that maybe take a lot of time. So like adding local information and such things. So that's how the map with AI process works. So before we go into like the hands-on session, I'll also mention for now, for what Facebook did is that they did for roads alone for specific countries, but one can request for a specific country. For Kenya, it's available for some towns. But then there's also AI generated features for buildings, but that was done by Microsoft. But for now, nothing is available for Kenya, but yeah, it's available for some countries. So for today, and I guess even as a Kenyan or someone who's mapping within Kenya, what you'll be working on is on roads alone when you're using the Map with AI feature. So yeah, before we go to the hands-on, I don't know if someone has a question, or if I moved too fast, if someone needs some clarification on AI and how it's it's useful in mapping, etc. Before we move to the hands-on bit. Anyone? Yeah, but but in a nutshell, that's how AI is helpful to mapping on yourself. But I'll also just mention that there's also just so many other uses of AI in mapping, in GIS in general. So if you're interested, you could explore those as well. If you have any question, feel free to interrupt me, and then we can continue. So if there are no questions for now, I'll just go back to my slides, and then we can continue with the process. So if you have a laptop, you can kindly open your browser, and then you can start exploring how that looks like. So similarly to how we've been mapping using the ID editor, there's also a separate editor for mapping with AI. Just a minute. But it's actually a similar version to the ID editor, because as you're also mentioning when you're starting this entire training program, that yes, OSM is a data crowdsourcing platform, but it's also an open source platform, meaning its tools are free and open for use. And that means that you can actually get the entire project that is ID editor and create your own ID editor or your own mapping editor. And that's what was done by Facebook. So they took the ID editor code base and then improved and enhanced it. Let me refresh this. Improved and enhanced it to create this editor called the Rapid editor. So once we open it, you'll notice it's similar to how the ID editor looks, but it just has maybe one or two more functionalities. So and that's just what I was explaining here. So to get started, first if you go to this site, it's mapwith.ai/rapid. So I'll paste it on the chat box as well. In case you're using your laptop, you can open it, but also if you're joining with a phone, you can just open your laptop and go to the site. So when you open it, this is how it would look like. So you can see it's completely similar to the ID editor, but you'll notice it just has this button here that is showing shortcuts for the Rapid editor. But at this point, you cannot see the data that is AI generated, because the data that's AI generated usually has these purple lines. I don't call them purple. I don't know if that's pink or purple. But this color. So for you to see the features, you have to zoom to a specific area. So say, for example, in our case, I can zoom to Nairobi. So just zoom into an area which you're interested in. You can also search if you want to. So then when you zoom in, you'll start seeing a number of features. Trying to see an area whose roads have not been fully mapped. But when you zoom in completely, then you will see the features loading up. And what you can do at this point, since we are only mapping roads, is that you can go to map data on. There's usually this number of icons here that you can use to make selections. So you can select the one that is map data. And then you can, what you can do, you can turn off a number of things so that you can just be able to easily see more features. Because I see, we all know Nairobi is an urban area, so when all the features are displayed, it can be hard to see everything at once. Can remove. Okay, yeah. So we can zoom in to here. I think I zoomed into that Mbagathi Way area, Ngumo, those sides. Yeah, but you can zoom in anywhere in Nairobi. Then what you'll see is that some roads have been mapped. Almost all the roads have been mapped, but then you can see that these purple-like lines, and those are the AI-generated features. So actually, when you hover on it, you can see it shows Facebook roads, and then it also suggests the tag for that road. etc. And then all these other roads are the ones that have been manually mapped before, or also they might have been mapped using Map with AI before. Yeah, but they've already been added to the map. And as I'd shown you the process before, when you're mapping with AI, it's now simpler. So you're no longer tracing. Your process now just involves verifying that what was mapped is, like what has been generated is actually a road, and then tagging it. So say, for example, what would happen is that I would click on that purple feature, and then I can see that it's a road. It's an extension of a road that was not mapped here. So what I'll do is I'll use this feature. I'll click on use, because once you click on it, before you click on it, it looks like that. When you hover on it, it shows Facebook roads. When I click on it, it gives me two options. So if I should use this feature, and use this feature just means if I would like to add it on OpenStreetMap. So or if I think this is not correct, then what that would mean is that I would say ignore this feature. So if I ignore it, that happens. But I can also undo. And then if I think it's correct, then I click on use this feature. Then since I had not logged in before, it first asks you if you're just exploring, just to see how the Map with AI works, how Map with AI works, or if you actually want to make edits on OSM. So if you want to make edits, you can click on login with OSM, then basically continue mapping and then uploading the features. But I'm not going to do that for now. Yeah, so maybe I can give guys a few seconds to also just explore that process and see how it works. I don't know if any of us have zoomed into an area, if they're seeing any purple lines. Yeah, and basically but basically that's just how it works. Yeah. So it's verifying and then just adding the feature, making edits if you want to. But I'll show that as we continue. So I don't know, before we continue, are there any questions for now? Okay, I'll assume that silence means people can understand.
Laura.
Yes?
Yes, I've just zoomed into a place within Nairobi, but I can't see any purple lines. What does that mean?
So that would, because as I was saying that you see Nairobi has been well mapped on OSM. So that's because before all the features are generated, they're also looking at what has already been mapped and using what has been mapped to train the model to generate the feature. So it might mean that one, the area that you've zoomed into, there are no purple lines because it's been fully mapped. Or two, it might also just mean that the model did not identify any roads. And even as I was going just to explain as we continue, is that at times you'll see that there are roads that have not been identified but exist. So you can still actually map a road if it has not been identified by, it has not been generated by the AI model that Facebook is using. So those are the options. Yeah.
Thank you.
Because you can, if I hover around, you can see that there are sections that do not have the purple lines, but they are fully mapped. Even as I move around. Yeah.
Good.
Okay. So any other question? Okay. Yeah. So also, just as we had shared with the when going through the ID editor, it's that it's not advisable to go directly to OpenStreetMap directly and start mapping, just because it can create a lot of issues because two people might be mapping the same area at the same time. So it's always advisable to use a tasking manager. So there's also a tasking manager that has been created to support mapping with AI, and I'll also just post that link as well on the chat. Yeah, because as you can remember, we had this before, this tasking manager, the normal hot tasking manager. Let me just open that. Where we could find several projects to work on. It's the link that we have been using to get projects for the South Sea project that we've been mapping, and it looks like this. So similarly, there's also this link. For now, a tasking manager that has been created to support mapping with AI projects. So when you go to that site, what you'll notice is it's similar, just the same that I was sharing, that all these tools are open source, meaning that you can also get the code base for this for the tasking manager and create your own tasking manager that suits your own purpose. So similarly, that's what was done, and you can see it's assisted mapping for good. Yeah, so it's currently experimental. It's an experimental playground instance of the tasking manager, supported by machine learning techniques to assist mappers, validators, and project managers. Yeah. So, and if you are interested in regular mapping, you can go back to the hot tasking manager that I've just shown before this. Yeah. So it just gives more information, and then it shows the two projects that are currently being explored with this instance. So there's the map with AI that we have just talked about, that has been done with Facebook to help map roads at the moment. And then there's also another project for project management, so for people who create mapping projects for to contribute to. So for similarly, just to the other site, when you want to contribute to a project, you click on contribute. I've also shared the link on chat, so if you're following along, you can click on it. So yeah, when you click on contribute at the top, you can see there are a number of projects. You can see there's a project in Liberia, project in Tanzania, project in Kericho, Kenya, Mexico, etc. You can also see a map view in case you're interested in mapping a specific area. And you can see also for this instance that there's a much less number of projects, because as I've shared, all these things are still being tested, and yeah, it's not all the cities in the world or all the towns that have this data available. Yeah, so you can also look at the map view in case you're interested in mapping an area. So for Kenya, you can see there's a project in Nairobi, there's another one in Kericho. So Before you go to the project base, make sure you log in. So at the top, I just click on login, then it should go to this page. And then you'll see it's your OpenStreetMap account that has been already logged in. Then you'll grant access. Yeah, so yeah, like from this point, and even it's similar to what we've been doing before, using the normal hot tasking manager. So once you've logged in, you can see your name, etc. And you can still look at the projects. Another way that you can search for a project is just type Nairobi. You can look at the Kericho one. Probably they're more. Maybe a lot of us could now be able to see. Okay. Proper lens, because I've seen someone on chat who was saying as well that there are no features there, but the Kericho one is 99% fact. So let's just use the Nairobi one. Yeah, so if you're on the contribute page, you can search Nairobi, or you can search 20, because that's the project ID. Yeah, so whichever method you want to use, you can go to the map view and zoom to Nairobi and click on the project to open it. Same process. Yeah, so I don't know if everyone is here. Maybe for those who are following along, maybe if you could just share if you have been able to get to the project and you can see this on your screen. Yeah, if you could type on chat. I can also share the direct link in case someone is interested in just getting directly to the project. Okay, so I hope we're together, guys. Yeah, so yeah, when you get to the project, but just before you continue, make sure you're logged in. So at the top right, make sure it's showing your OSM username. If you haven't, it will show login here. So you can click on it and then just grant access to your OSM account. Okay. Yeah, in case someone is having trouble getting to this, feel free to type on chat or unmute and ask away. Yeah, so yeah, once you get to this page, similar to that project, you'll see there's a project description. So you can see it says the goal of the project is to map all roads in Nairobi, Kenya, by validating machine learning detections where possible and adding any roads missed by the machine learning / AI detection process. Yeah, so as I was saying, it's not perfect as well, even as the name suggests, machine learning, it's still learning. So at times, a few features might be missed. So we are verifying what the AI generated data, but we are also adding anything that we can see that was not detected. And also how that helps the Facebook team in return is they can also monitor and see which features were manually mapped, and then take it back to the AI model and tell it you missed this. So it can learn, so that the next time that it's detecting again, maybe if it's a different area or the same area, then it learns and make sure it doesn't miss those. Yeah, just similar to also when you're mapping manually, when say I click on a task, select a task and start mapping it, submit the task. When a validator comes back and checks my work, they can tell me that I did not map all the buildings, and then when I see that, then I learn that I missed a certain number of buildings. Say, for example, when I'm mapping a rural area, people tend to miss huts that are usually circular in shape. So I learned that the next time I'm mapping a rural area, not miss these circular huts. So yeah, when you're thinking of AI, don't think of it as a difficult thing. Just think of it as a process that's basically simulating how a human works and how a human behaves, and basically how human processes work in general. So yeah, you can also see the status of the project. It's published. The priority, it's medium, meaning it's not urgent. Like these features are not needed urgently for any work whatsoever. Then created by OSM Kenya, created by Laura. Difficulty level, beginner mappers can contribute, and then we're mapping roads. Then the campaign is mapping AI. Then for someone to validate, they need to be a validator before. Then there are instructions, and I know maybe you're feeling that this is completely different with how the hot tasking manager looks like, and that is true. But initially, the hot tasking manager used to look exactly like this. The new changes were implemented this year when Hot were trying to improve the UI, UX feel of the hot tasking manager. So I'm not sure if in future also all these other tasking managers will be improved to look at like what the hot tasking manager looks like. Yeah, but initially this is how it looks like. So for new mappers, this might look different, but if you've been mapping for a while, you'll notice that this is actually how the tasking manager used to look like until somewhere this year. Yeah, then yeah, you'll see instructions, mapping roads. Then this is just the change comments, and then mapping tips. So it says for this project, you're only using the rapid editor, meaning not going to use the ID editor, not going to use JOSM, not using all those other editors that are usually listed there, not using any of those. So you're only using the rapid editor. And then for imagery, you're using Maxa. So as I had also shared that how the data was generated was using Maxa imagery. So it only makes sense to when you're mapping to use Maxa. If you use any other imagery, the AI generated data would look like it was not generated using. It will not be in line with how the imagery looks like. So you have to make sure that you are using Maxa Premium imagery. And then also just added info on road classification. So how do you know if it's a highway, if it's a path, if it's a service lane, if it's a residential road? And there's a wiki page that basically just explains tagging of roads in Kenya. Yeah, then basically shortcut keys, and then other tips on mapping roads. Yeah, so once you're ready, you can go back at the top and click on map. Then two things that you can do. Either you can say similarly just to the, as the other tasking manager was, you can select a task and start mapping that task, or you can select if you click on select, you can select a random one, so it will auto select for you. Yeah, and once now you select a task, you can usually see the history of that task. So you can see 2 months ago, two different people opened the task. Maybe they attempted mapping it, etc. And then it also gives a summary. So this is something that is not in the other tasking manager. So it will show the prediction details that the machine learning model had created. So building area, obviously it shows nothing because, as I shared as well, for Kenya, Microsoft has not released AI generated data for buildings. It's now Facebook has done for roads. Yeah, so when you're thinking about all this OSM and AI, it's Facebook that has done the roads, but then it's Microsoft that's working on detecting buildings. And for Microsoft, they've done that for a few countries. I think in Africa, I think they've done for Tanzania, Uganda, but for Kenya, it's not been done. So yeah. So yeah, so once you select a task, so yeah, if you are at this point, you can select a task, any task that's ready for mapping. The ready for mapping ones are usually the clear ones. You can see there are not so many. Most tasks have been mapped because we've been using this project basically since 2018 to just basically show how the how map with the AI works. So yeah, you can select any task that you'd like to map, and then you can click on start mapping. So when you click on start mapping, you see it will auto load something else, and then it will show it will only bring up the rapid editor. So you cannot select any editor if you wanted to. Then there's a 2-hour limit uh, for you to finish mapping that task. So once you're here, you can click on start editor, and it will load on another page. And also that is something that is not in the hot tasking manager, because in the hot tasking manager the ID editor loads in the on the same page, but with the alt tasking manager, what used to happen, it used to open in one page, but it's the same thing. Hope you're together. If you have any questions, feel free to stop me at any point. Yeah, so for the task that I had selected, so as it's loading the data, so when you're actually mapping to add on the map, you have to make sure all the features are selected so that you do not draw, like you do not overlap features and such things. So yeah, now I'm sure everything is there. I'll zoom into my tile. Yeah, whichever tile you had chosen. Yeah, so you can zoom into it. For mine, as you can see, there are a number of um, AI generated features. So say for example, so basically what you just do is you zoom in further to identify. So for my tile, I can see these land use features are sort of making it hard for me to verify if this is a road or not. So I'll actually just go and turn off land use so that I can be sure. Yeah. So as you can see, it has identified this as a road feature. So what I'll do from my end, what I can see. So at the end of the day, you're still going to use visual interpretation. But from my end, what I can see, I feel like this is a path that goes ahead and connects to this one, because I can see these lines here. Even though there are some trees here, I feel like this is a road for sure, but I need to connect it all the way up to this point. So for what I'll do is I'll click on use this feature. Then I had not logged in, so I will click on log in with SM, and then just grant access. Okay. Yeah, so you don't have to do the walkthrough because I think we have done that. So I'll just click on no thanks, just start mapping. Yeah, but if you'd like, you could do the walkthrough, then learn more about Rapid, and then you should just open them up with the AI website. So you can just, for now, you can just click on no thanks, just start mapping. Yeah, so once I clicked on use this feature, you can see it auto detected it as a service road, and it's not that it's uh, like it's doing some serious work. Like it's not that complex. That's just what I'm trying to say. It has just looked at the feature that is connected to it, which is also a service road, and then sort of assumed that this is also a service road. So what I'll do is I can see that. Yes, it had identified it as a road. Yes, a road is passing here, but I can see that this corner is a bit iko hapa kiasi. See, we can also Sorry, guys. I actually didn't notice that I could not be heard. I don't know. At what point was I before if I accidentally jumped off? Like had I submitted the edits?
Maybe you share your screen. I'll be able to tell you where you are. Please. Okay,
Okay.
like you are where you are mapping that road, that Kawan road.
Okay. So let me just go back to that basket. Sorry. Okay, so I was. Okay. I didn't know I was lost because I had completed mapping that project and even submitted. But okay, let me see if I can reopen it. Yeah, I can reopen it. Yeah, so I had shown how to get to this place, select a task, open the editor, it opens on a new tab. And then when it opens on a new tab, what that just happens is that I need to zoom in. I'll also agree that it's a bit slow as compared to the ID editor, because when you open, you'll notice how the features are loading. It's a bit slow. Then I'll zoom in. When you zoom in, you'll start seeing the AI generated features. So, for example, in my end, I can see a few of those. So, yeah, you can just zoom around and see how it looks like. Then I had actually mapped this and this. I don't know if that had been shown. Then say, for example, I can click on use this feature. Then, but then I think it starts from here. Okay, just a minute. The first thing you can do is I can disconnect and then just edit it so that it sort of makes sense. I don't think it goes all the way to here. I think it goes up to here. Yeah, so at the end of the day, you still get to also just map according to what you can see, or edit, modify to what you can see. Yeah. And I was just sharing that basically that's the process. So it's just going to where the features have been auto-generated, and then clicking on a feature and having to look around if it's actually correct or not. Then even if it's partly covering the road, because I can see also this looks like I have another roundabout, or I don't know. Yeah, this is a car park basically. So it has like a road that's going all the way around. So also same here, I can see that this is a road that is going this way. So and assumption that it's a car park is because I can see cars here. Yeah. And you can see that this is like a big industry area. So I can see that.
Hi, Laura.
Probably. Yes. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I don't know if Sharon had a question. Okay. Yeah. But basically, I was just saying that. So basically, it's just that you look at what has been auto-generated. So, and then even if it's part of it or it's completely the correct thing, you click on use the feature. If it's wrong, you click on ignore the feature. So, say for example, I can also see that this is partly covering because just the way I had drawn this one, I feel like also you can see this was not also generated, but I'll draw it. But then this one has been partly generated, so I'll click on it. Then I click on use this feature. Then I'll edit it so that it fully covers. Yeah, so it's in as much as there's the data exists, you also just have to improve it. Because I'll say it's not perfect and it's still in testing, so this would also help the team that's working on this to improve on the model. Then maybe in future, when it's fully operational, then maybe it will also help to identify such features. Okay, then I'll add service road. I can also draw this one. Yeah, but I think also before I got lost, I was also saying that in case you're following along and you've opened the tile and you cannot see any AI generated data, so just look around in the project and see if there are maybe roads that have not been identified, and map them manually, and then you can submit them. But then if also there are no AI generated roads, but the roads that are there have been fully mapped, then you'll also just come back here and say all roads have been fully mapped, then mark as completely mapped. Then if you've added a few roads, then you can just add a comment that you've actually added a few roads. So say another example is here as well. So when I look at this, I'm not sure if it's a road. I don't think it's a road. Maybe it's a path, but I don't think it goes all the way around. Because if I turn off this building just to see how it looks like. Because from this end, I can see that there's a path here. But also, just thinking logically, if I'm at this car park, how do I get to this building? There has to be a path that's coming from this road to what seems like the entrance of the building. But there's also this one here. So I'll say use this feature. Then I'll edit it as well, just to match what I'm seeing. Whether to add a node on a road, you just double click on it. Yeah, that's it. And then just another thing to note is that the project is only for mapping roads. So yes. So for this project, you're not mapping buildings, so only map roads. So I can also extend this to come all the way and connect. Yeah, so basically just make edits based on what you see and also what has been generated. So I'll also just look around on this tile and see if there's anything else. At least for me, this area is largely forested. So this area obviously has no roads or paths. From what I can see, and also you can see that there are no AI generated ones. But I can actually see something that has not been mapped, because yes, there's this road, but I can see there's a another road hapa juu that is going all around. So I can also mark that one, but because of time I won't. So I will upload this, and then there is a warning, so I can look at it. Oh, it shows this that I had added. It just, but this is also usually in ID editor. It has detected it as a warning, but since I'm sure that it's a road, and it connects with this, I'll ignore it. Then I'll go ahead and upload. Yes, so I'll add a few. Just add a few things to the Genset comments. Oops. Okay, then I'll go ahead and upload. Yeah, it's basically similar to the other mapping process, only that we are verifying. Yeah, so I don't know. Are there any questions? And also, if you've been mapping, have you? What has that been like for you? Are there any challenges? Are you for the tiles that you've selected? Because I've seen a few tiles have been selected. I've stopped mapping because I saw a road that has not been mapped. So I've seen a few people have blocked some tasks. So what's the process like for you? Are you seeing any auto-generated roads that are purple? Are you seeing more gaps? Yeah. Also, I'd like to hear from everyone. Does this seem to be easier? From your perspective, is it easier or is it more tedious? Is it making any work easier for you? Yeah. So yeah, if people could just maybe come off mute and share what they feel like, because as I had shared that this whole thing is still in testing. So
Laura,
yeah. Yes.
I'm having a challenge here. I found a purple marked road. Then I decided to use it, but then it's crossing other roads, and again it's hitting a building.
Yeah, so yeah, that's as I was sharing is that yes, once you identify when you see the purple road, that's the AI generated road.
Okay, let me
road
try to answer on behalf of Laura. I think she still has some connection problems. Yeah, so when you use a road and it's crossing a building, you can either, I don't know if you're able to share your screen, but you can I don't know how the road and the buildings, how they are. Can you able to share your screen?
Let me try.
Okay.
Map with AI is on a different browser.
Okay, what happens is which editor? Oh, you're using RapID. Yeah. So what happens is you can try to move the nodes where they are connecting with the buildings. Try and move the nodes where they connect with the buildings. Yeah, and then where the roads intersects other roads, you can also try to join the nodes as well. Yeah, join the nodes for the roads that you added and the other roads that are being crossed with the new road. You can join the nodes.
Yeah, I've done that for the building. It's asking me to state the rank, whether higher or lower than the building.
The road.
Yes. Topology.
The rank for the road.
Yes.
I don't know. I wish I could be in a position to see how the error looks like. But let me see. Have you tagged the road already? Have you given
I'm
it a
not
tag?
done yet. I haven't finished editing the road.
Okay, so how about you finish editing the road, tag it, and then try to save, and then
Okay.
try to move the nodes where the roads nodes and the buildings nodes meet. Try to move that node so that it doesn't touch any buildings node, and then try to
Okay.
save. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So anybody else with a question as we wait for Laura? I'll try to reach out.
I'm here. You can't hear me? I can hear everyone, so I don't know what's happening. Anyway, wait. Just confirming. Can I be heard or not?
Yes, we can hear you.
I'm a bit confused. But anyway, yeah. But basically, I think that was the process. Yeah, and basically that's the current exploration that's being done on how AI is being used to map to help map on SM. I think Sharon had answered the. Someone had asked a question on overlapping, but yeah, it's still the same process as mapping directly on the ID editor, because I think buildings do not overlap with roads at all, even in real life. So yeah, you can move if you can see the road, like the detection is correctly, you can move the nodes to match where the road is, and you can also move the building as well, so they're not overlapping. Yeah, maybe if you're still having issues, I'm not sure who had asked the question. Maybe you can take a screenshot and share, or if you'd want to as well. I think on Jitsi anyone can share their screen, so you can. Yeah, so you can click on. If you want to share your screen and maybe show us, and then you can help out, you can click on this. I don't know if you can see my screen. On the bottom left, there's a share your screen option. Maybe you can share your screen and then you can try and see what the issue is. Yeah, but yeah, if as you are saying, when you click on it and it asks you to tag higher, you see the way. Let me open Rapid. When I have all my features here, you can see that there is land use, then there's usually right hand of buildings. Okay, they're on. There's land use, there's roads, there's buildings. So basically, tagging higher usually means that what's on top of what. So for example, land use is usually below. So if maybe land use is overlapping with a building, then you would tag lower. You'll tag land use as lower, and then buildings as higher. But then you see for buildings and roads, it's impossible for a building to overlap a road. So for buildings and roads, you just have to edit the nodes until they correctly match. If it means moving the building, if it means moving the roads, you'll have to do it. Other things that can overlap, that maybe you can tag higher or lower. If a road crosses a bridge, no, a road crosses a river and there's a bridge. At that point, you tag the road as higher because see, the road is due, the bridge is due the river. So at that point, you tag the road as higher. So that's where when you get a warning or an error for tagging higher or lower, you have to look at the features and then just visualize how they would look like in the real world. So if it's a road and a river, the road you tag it as higher, the river as lower. If it's a land use and a road, land use and everything else, the land use is always lower. But if it's a building and a road, you have to move things around. Because say, for example, here, you can see they're so close to each other, but they can never overlap because even in real life, a road cannot overlap a building or vice versa. Yes. So I hope that's answered. For the thing to note is just that for the AI generated data, like it's not the gospel truth. AI is nice and everything, but it's not 100% accurate. So feel free to modify it. And I was saying let me see if there's any purple line on my area still. Okay, this one I'd already ignored. But as I was saying, just for the lines, if you are not sure how to move nodes, the nodes are the two dots that are usually on a line. So if I click on a road, I can see more nodes, these two round dots. So you can move nodes around. You can delete a node. You click on it and you delete. You can add a node. To add a node, you click. When you click on a feature, there's usually this an arrow that shows up. So you can either just click on it and move it around, but you can also add where that arrow is not there. So you just double click and add nodes and move them around if there's overlapping. But for roads and linear features, personally, I add a lot of nodes so that to make sure that they're well curved. See, if you do cartography and GIS, you're usually told roads do not have corners. If roads had corners, people would die everywhere. So they're usually curves. So to make sure that you're getting that good curve, can usually add more nodes to achieve that look, and also just to make sense of everything. Yeah, and I don't know if there are any other questions. Yeah, but that's basically the mapping with AI process. It's just that for this project, as I was sharing, like we created this project in 2018. So it's been, I'd say, almost fully mapped. That's why maybe if you open a task, you might not find a task with the AI generated features like the purple ones and such things. Yeah. But that is basically the process. So I don't know if there are any other questions for now by anyone. Any question or comment. I was also asking if people could share what they think about this process. Is it easier? Because as I was sharing, the whole purpose of AI and all these things is that it's supposed to make our mapping process easier and make things faster. Like, what do you guys think? Is it easier? Is it faster? Or we are just forcing things and forcing issues? Personally, I think it is a bit faster. But I also feel like there's still a long way to go. Was someone talking?
Yeah, hello. Hello, Laura.
Hi. Yes, they can hear you.
Thank you. Actually, I think, in my opinion, yes, there's that bit where you are saying, like, AI has still got a long way to go. Yep. But I think it's easy, like imagining, I think there's reduced work. Like if they're going to map for us, the street, and we just come, they can validate them. That's really reduced work. So it means we can do much more number of projects compared to doing everything manually on our own.
Okay.
So actually,
Yeah.
actually, for me, I really prefer it.
Yeah. I also think it's a bit, it's faster. It makes things easier in a way, and at least it does not like replace us. So as mappers, we can still come in and verify and improve on it. And as we improve, it's also learning, and then so things become easier and faster for mappers. Yeah. Anyone else on what they think about all this, or any question? If you are experiencing any challenges so far, you can also ask. Anyone? Okay, so as I'd shared, as we had started, why is this crowded? Oh, this is Kangemi. I've just opened another task. Yeah, but if you have any questions, you can also ask. Also, as I had shared as well, when it comes to all this AI stuff with OSM, it's at the moment, I think it's mainly two companies. So there's Facebook that has done the auto detection of roads, and then Microsoft also came up with the auto detection of buildings, but at the moment they've not done it for Kenya or Nairobi, which makes sense in a way if you think about it. Because also when you're thinking about AI and how all these things work, if I'm running a model in an area, also for roads it's a bit easy because you see roads almost look the same, like tarmac roads look the same from an image. Like they always have that gray color. For tarmac roads, they have that brown color. And then it's also easy to differentiate between a road and other linear features like rivers and such things. Because for rivers, when you're looking at satellite imagery, they really look blackish. And then, say for example, I can see there's a road here, there's a river here. Then they usually have vegetation around it. So say for example, like this one, this river here. But then for buildings, you can imagine how different buildings look like. So, say for example, because buildings vary in a number of things. The sizes are different. Also, just going back to this presentation, we're talking about the elements of visual interpretation, and how that helps us to identify things. Because if you're looking at buildings, a lot of things are like all the things are different. The shapes are different. There are rectangular buildings, there are circular buildings, there are L-shaped buildings. There are buildings that just have very many different shapes. And then when you're looking at colors, you can see here there's a red building that has a red rooftop. There's a gray one. There's a brown one. There's a blue one if you look here. Then when you're looking at patterns of say residential areas, they're all totally different. So say for example, like where I opened there, you can see that this is a more uptown area, but then this is like an informal settlement. This is Kangemi. I think this is Kangemi and this is Mountain View. Then what else is here? When you're looking at shadows, sizes are totally different, and also just how the features are associating with each other. So also when you're looking at all these AI models and everything, we can assume, or I think it is true that it's easier to auto-generate roads as compared to buildings, just because of how buildings are different. Yeah, that's why I think also for like what Microsoft has been doing, it's only for very few towns, and maybe that's why for places like Nairobi, they've not yet auto-generated a data set for Nairobi. Yeah, but I hope also we can get for a town in Nairobi, not in Nairobi, in Kenya, that we can also experiment with that. At the moment, I think there's only in Africa, I think it's only Tanzania and Uganda, if I'm not wrong. I'm just trying to see the list for that. Okay, see. Okay. Yeah, so let me just try and get the link. Yeah, but also for even as I'm getting the link for buildings, it's also the same process as for roads. So for buildings, how that actually looks like is now, you would see the AI generated buildings as, you see the way we can see here, this one's as purple. I think for buildings, they're yellow. And then, so you click on it and then you verify if it's a building. And then if you need to square it or make it circular, then you modify it and then you submit. So yeah, it's also the same process. It's just that we don't have any AI generated data for buildings in Kenya, but it's the same process. Yeah, so I'd say that's it, unless anyone has a question. Then we could stop there in case there are no questions or comments. Yeah, but that's basically it. I think I had covered everything. Yeah, but that's basically the mapping with AI process. These are just the other steps on the tasking manager. Yeah, but yeah, that's basically the mapping with the AI process. As I shared, a lot of things are still in testing. Yeah, a lot of things are still in testing. But things look hopeful, I would say. I really look forward to the day that we'll have for buildings, because I feel like mapping buildings is also usually very tedious, especially for highly populated areas or urban areas. So if we have also that done for buildings for more areas, then that would be good for the OSM mapping community. Yeah, but to learn more about the mapping with AI initiative, you can go to the website is mapwith.ai. Then you'll get more links on the process, on how it was done. A cool thing that you can actually do even out of OSM is you can download this entire map with AI dataset for all the countries that they've done it for, and then you can work with it. If maybe you're already exploring on how you can use machine learning and artificial intelligence in the GIS space, so you can also download this. If there's a model, your own AI model that you're creating, you can use this. You can use this as training data and such things for your own purposes. So yeah, just go to this website and you'll get more links. Yeah, but there's a link to download the entire the entire data set. Then everything is open source as I shared. So you can also open their GitHub and just play around it and see how it works. Yeah. So yeah, well, let me just share the link to this website as well on chat. Yeah, I hope you've learned a thing or two. Yeah, today's was a short one about this. Yeah, but also just wrapping it up. As we had shared, this is the last one for 2020 until January, tentatively January 9th. Then we then start the process of mapping health facilities, which was the main goal of the project for this project. So like for the first half of the training program was to make sure that all the trainees are familiar with OSM. So basically what OSM is, who is contributing to OSM, what it entails, and all those good things that we have been sharing for the past few weeks. Yeah, because we have done OSM, we have done contributions, so mapping with ID editor, mapping with JOSM. We have done data quality, accuracy, and validation. Last week we did how we can contribute to OSM using mobile applications. So yeah, so that you do not always have to have your laptop to add a building, to add a road. There are so many ways that you can contribute. Then today we've learned the last bit on mapping with AI. So yeah, how I think everyone nowadays is talking about AI and how it's doing a thing or two or making work easier. So yeah, how is that helping in the OSM world? And also just trying also to figure out, if you're curious how then you can use it in the GIS space as well. Yeah, and then so ideally right now, you would say you have all the information on all the things about OSM. Because I think in between the sessions we were exploring also some users and applications, but actually for the going forward now, starting in January, we'll now officially start on the users and applications of OSM. So the first session will be on that, and then we'll now go further now into the use of OSM in the health sector, and then start our project and finalize by the end of January. So I don't know. I hope so far someone feels like an intermediate mapper or an advanced mapper to some extent. Yeah. Yeah, but so on, because now going forward, starting in January, we'll sort of be assuming in a way. So it will no longer, yes, there'll be workshops and all these things, but there'll be more on the applications and yeah, and such things. So at this point, I'll say we'll also compile everything into one. So all the slides, at least into a folder, in case maybe you had not downloaded when you were sharing the WhatsApp group. I'll share a link and all the recordings and everything, in case you need a refresher for all the things that we have been learning. Yeah, and then that will be it. So I guess the last thing would be to say, kindly, if you have not signed the trainee agreement, please do so. So far, I think only 15 people have signed. So if you have not, or maybe you didn't see the email, yeah, just check on your email, search for osmkenya@gmail.com. It should show up, but if you don't have it, also notify me, then I can resend it to you. Yeah, it's just a Google form that you click on, I agree. That is if you agree, and that will be it. At least let's try and sign, and so that if you're going to 2021, it feels weird saying that. If you're going to 2021, you know if we are moving all together or not. Yeah, so if there are no other questions, I will end it there, unless I don't know if anyone wanted to say anything. Yeah, but from my end, I would wish everyone a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year as early as now, and also happy holidays in general, even as people are starting to go on break, and even for us, since this is our last session. Yeah, I'll go ahead and wish everyone that. Yeah, but if anyone wanted to say anything, yeah, you can say something. Or yeah, but that will be it for today and for 2020. Yeah, but kama kuna anything, ni hivyo. So good night, have a good week ahead, and that will, yes, that's it.